Aloha and welcome to the mass movements video. In this video we'll describe mass movement and identify the factors that trigger them, and also we'll classify the different mass movements. So let's talk about what mass movements are and what triggers them. Mass movements are when we're moving a large section of the Earth's crust at a time. We're not talking a tectonic plate size, but we're talking like a side of a mountain. It's like a rock slide, a mud slide, things of that nature. We'll talk about the different examples so you can see what they are. But they all have certain triggers, and the biggest trigger is going to be gravity. And quite simply, that's anytime I take something and lift it up above the ground. So if I put a rock on top of a hill here, gravity is going to want to pull it back down this hill, and we see that happening a lot with these mass movements. Now we can talk about saturation of surface materials. If we get it wet, then it tends to slide a little bit more. If it gets over wet, then it can flow down the side of a mountain as well. Over steepening, if we take a mountain that had a nice little slope like this, but then we decide that we're going to cut this part off. Okay, so we take out this part here, then you can see how now it's going to be steeper, and that's going to be a little bit more of a trigger that we can see these mass movements happen. We can take away the vegetation. Remember that if we have plants here, the plants all have roots. We'll draw the roots coming down like this. You can kind of see what we're talking about. So if I have these roots in the soil, that's going to kind of hold this clump of soil together. So if I pull out these, then now what we have is we have this soil that no longer has the roots, and that'll allow it to move a little bit easier as well. And then final trigger is going to be an earthquake, and that's going to cause a lot of shaking to happen, and it'll shake up the loose things per se, and that's what will trigger some of these mass movements as well. So probably the simplest of all mass movements is going to be the rock falls, and what that simply is, it's a rock falling, exactly like the name says. So you'll notice in the picture here we had a rock that was way up on this cliff here. It got dislodged somehow through weathering or something caused it, and then gravity took over and it plunged the rock down the hill like this. So rock falls are going to be a little bit smaller, and what we're going to notice is it generally tends to be just like a little bit here, like you can see, contained, and it's just simply rocks falling down. Now slides are going to be a little bit different. In slides, we have a block of material, so you're going to see a lot more of that material fall. If we had a rock fall, it would be a single solitary rock that just kind of plunged down. But here, what you see is in a slide, this whole face broke loose and just came crumbling down like this. So you can see it's generally going to give us a lot more material that's going to be there. And we can see these in areas where you have like a weathering and erosion on a cliffside, and you can see how there's like these natural cracks here, and that whole section can be the next one to fall down. Now we also can talk about a slump, and a slump is downward along a curved surface. So what you'll notice here is we have a crescent shape kind of a deal. They cut it here, but you'd notice that if you looked up above, you would see this crescent kind of a shape here, and then this mass movement is going to be all of this stuff that flowed down from that crescent shape, and you can kind of see it coming through here. This is what a slump would look like. So you can tell it's a slump and not a slide. Slides tend to be straight, slumps are going to be curved. So that's how we can tell the difference between the two. Now we talked about water getting involved here. If we add water to it, then we get a flow. So we can have a mud flow, which is kind of like what you see in the picture here, where you're seeing that all of the water came down, heavy rains, rapid spring melting of snows, things of that nature. You're going to get a lot of water up in here, and that's going to cause it to just flow down into this like river of mud that you can see going on here. So a flow is when we have water and it just flows down the mountain. And then finally we have creep. And creep is really slow. That's the key. You want to remember that it's slow. Basically only really can see the effects of it. What it's caused by is caused by freezing and thawing. So as it freezes, it's going to cause it to expand, and then when it thaws out, so you see the expansion when it's freezing, okay, we'll see this expansion, and then it'll contract when it thaws. So we kind of see this over a period of time, this fluctuating of the soil. And what happens is objects that used to stand up straight, like this tombstone would have, we notice that over time they start to tilt downhill like this. And this is all that creep is. That's what we'll see going on here. So you can see it in tombstones, fence posts, telephone poles, things of that nature. Okay, well that's it for this video. As always, good luck in the lessons and the quizzes, and we'll see you in the next video.